Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for my fifth Director's Desk Talk. I'm Brianna, the Executive Director of the Shaker Historical Society, and today we are going to be talking about our Space Task Force. So first question might be, what is the Space Task Force? It is a small committee of staff and board members developed from fall 2020 strategic planning. So one of our sections of our strategic plan focuses on preservation and access. And we decided that one of the large needs that we had as an organization was to evaluate our space, our physical space. So we had 4 goals: to evaluate the physical space needs of staff and the museum. So this includes galleries, collection storage, classrooms, and other spaces like that. Evaluate what is currently in the space, identify which rooms are ideal for each need, and identify what needs to be done to each room for ideal use of the space. So this could include shelving in collection storage, or perhaps getting climate control, HVAC, in some of the spaces that currently don't have anything. So the progress that we've made so far, we've had, I believe at this point it is 5 kind of intense cleaning days at the museum. And we have cleaned, reorganized, and evaluated 6 rooms in the house to prepare for next steps. And so I'm just going to kind of go over a few of these rooms. I'm not going to get into all 6, but I did want to highlight some of them to show the progress that we've made. So the first room is the Butlers Pantry, and I'm going to show you just a clip from a video that one of our board members who's on the Space Task Force made to kind of show our current situation, or what was our current situation a couple months ago. So the Butlers Pantry is off view, meaning that visitors and the public don't regularly see it. And it was used as gift shop storage. As you can see in this video, it is kind of packed to the brim. It was very difficult to move around in the space. It was difficult to find anything. I can kind of show it again. And we felt that this was not the best use for the space. There is a lot of storage, there is a desk and filing cabinets, and so we thought, well, what if we use it as a staff, volunteer, intern workspace? So this is what it looks like now after our cleaning. We still are storing a few gift shop items, especially big items like all of these tubes that you see are rolled up posters. Just not the easiest thing to store, so those are still being stored there. But we can walk through the space. We can access all of the shelving that's on the right side. And in general, it's much closer to being ready to be used as a workspace for, as I mentioned, either staff or volunteers or interns. The next space is our sleeping porch. This is also off view. It's on our 2nd floor. And again, you'll notice a common theme with some of these rooms is that they are packed. So again, this video was taken a few months ago and space was very difficult to navigate. It was full of old exhibit posters, exhibit supplies, labels, event items like signage, and kind of just a lot of random stuff. We weren't even sure exactly what was in the room just because it was hard to really get to everything. So our goal with this space is to turn it into an education or program space. So for example, when classes visit, we could set up tables. We could have students doing projects in there or doing activities for their field trips. And this is what the space looks like now. I'll move my little window down. So it's a sizable room. The one issue that we currently have, well, 2 issues, I guess, is number 1, it is not climate controlled. So it gets very cold in the winter, very hot in the summer. So that's something that we will need to look into how to correct that, or how much it will cost to correct that. And the second issue that we recently came across is, if you notice this taped up window here, we recently had a window that was torn off of the building due to high winds. It's an old house. The windows don't quite close all the way in some of the rooms, and unfortunately just some wind snuck in and kind of tore it off. And so we are currently working to get that repaired. Luckily, this room does not contain any collections objects, so there's no risk of collections objects being damaged by this or harmed by the temperature fluctuations or any water that would potentially get in through the window. But you can see we've cleared off a lot of space. The shelving up here, we've kind of organized our exhibit supplies. There still needs to be some work done, but it's a big improvement. The next room is the Jean Hudson room. This is one of two small rooms that are at the end of the hallway on our second floor. Both rooms were originally servants' quarters, so they're not very big. But you can see that it was being used for collection storage. Not the best use for the space, just because the chairs and other collections objects take up a lot of space on the floor, but then there's space above it, that shelving units could theoretically take up. And it just was kind of packed full of chairs. Again, very hard to maneuver. There was some shelving on the right side that is currently out of the frame, and we weren't even sure what was in the shelves or in the cabinets because we couldn't get to it. So a lot of this furniture got moved into the attic with some other collections objects, and was in general kind of rearranged. And this is what it looks like now. So as I mentioned, there is some shelving and cabinets that is right out of the frame on the right side. So we can now access that. We do still have some collections objects that were just too big to store up in the attic at this point. And we also added a shelving unit that is now able to store either collections objects or some archival materials. So all of the boxes you see here are institutional archives or records that are related to our institution's history. And so those can be temporarily stored here. We eventually do need to go through them and organize them, but it's at least a temporary space and they're not just kind of piled up in the basement or somewhere else. And then the last room I want to talk about is the Isabel main room. That is another one. That's the other of the two rooms I mentioned at the end of the hall, was a servant's room back in the day when the house was a residence. And as I keep mentioning, the common theme is that these rooms were packed. So the board member who is going through taking this video even mentions in the video that you have to maneuver very carefully, be careful walking around just because there is so much stuff. You can see we do have some shelving, some boxes. So there is some level of organization, but in general, it just was not a space that was being well utilized, and it was not easy to go through to even see what we had in the room. So this is what it looks like now. It is a small space, so it's hard to get a good photo of it, but we have room to walk now. All of the boxes you saw in the video are still over on the left side. We've tried to keep all of the framed pieces in this room so we know where they are. Currently not ideal storage for them to just be leaning, but that's something that we hope to address in the future. We have some shelving here with some glass objects. But one of the items that I'm excited about is that we had this table that was in there, and it is now being used by a board member who is volunteering, adding some collections objects to our catalog. And so this is a really nice processing space for her to bring the boxes down off of the shelves, lay out all of the items, photograph them, make sure she has all the necessary information for them. So it's now become kind of a nice workspace. Our goals for both of these back rooms, the Isabel main room and the Jean Hudson room, is either to turn them into small offices for our other staff members, or to be collections and education storage. So those are still kind of up in the air in terms of what we're going to use them for, but we do not intend to keep them the way they are currently set up. So one of the big things that we've been considering as we've been evaluating our space is our exhibits. So we currently have 5 galleries. On the first floor, we have our temporary exhibit space. We have a gallery that's seen in this photo here about the Shakers, and then we have a small gallery about the Van Swearingen brothers. On our second floor, we have the Shaker bedroom, and then a gallery that pertains to the Shakers and early Shaker Heights. But we have to ask ourselves, are we truly telling the whole Shaker Heights story? That's something that we pride ourselves on. It's something that we include in our mission. But if you were to just look at these galleries that are listed, it very much focuses on early Shaker Heights. None of our galleries really address the 1930s and beyond. And so that is something that we have been considering, is how do we tell the whole Shaker Heights story? Because of course, Shaker Heights has a very significant history beyond the 1930s, beyond the Van Swearingen brothers. The other issue that we were facing is accessibility challenges. So for example, we have no elevator. So if we have guests who, maybe are using wheelchairs or have mobility issues, there's no easy way for them to access the second floor. And just due to the historic nature of the house, we don't see adding an elevator anytime soon. Also partly due to the cost, that gets very expensive. And so we're thinking, how can we not only tell the whole Shaker Heights story, but make it accessible to people who may only be able to access the first floor with our ramp that is located near our back entrance. And then the third thing we were thinking of was, how do we keep people engaged beyond our temporary exhibits? So our temporary exhibits rotate about every 3 to 4 months, but our permanent exhibits have been pretty permanent for a while. And so I've heard a couple of people say when they come to visit, oh, this room hasn't changed since I was here 5 years ago. And that's not what we want. We want people to keep coming to see what we have. We want people to learn something new every time they come. And that needs to go beyond just our one temporary exhibit. So those were the three main questions that we've kind of been considering as we've been evaluating our space needs, and also considering our challenges, which are time, in terms of staff time, board member time, volunteer time, our physical resources. So do we need more shelving units? Do we have proper boxes and enclosures for objects for storage? Do we need computers for staff, all of that stuff? And then of course, there's always money. So all of the stuff that I've said are kind of our goals for the space is going to take money, either to pay experts and contractors for time to fix these spaces up for our needs, or just to buy the physical resources I previously mentioned, such as shelving units and archival boxes, stuff like that. So this is, I'm not going to go too much into it, but we've kind of drafted out a floor plan for our end goals. So if you're looking above at this back porch, this is where you enter the museum. Our temporary exhibit room, we are planning on keeping as our temporary exhibit space. It just works really well for that. It has 2 built-in cabinets in these corners that are really nice for rotating exhibits. So that's probably going to stay the same. However, the shaker room that I previously mentioned, we would really like to turn that into the Shaker Heights story. So it would kind of be like a timeline. Oh, going back accidentally. It would be like a timeline room that covers Shaker Heights history from Warrensville Township and the Shakers through the present. And this is a really nice way, as I mentioned, because of our accessibility challenges, if there is a guest who is only able to access the first floor, they still get a little bit of the full Shaker Heights story through this room. And it also allows us to change up objects, which is really nice. So instead of having an entire room devoted to the Shakers and it just kind of always stays the same, if we just have a small section that's about the Shakers, we can periodically change objects out. So when people visit, there might be new objects. It also gives objects time to rest, because it's not always good for every type of object to be on view all the time. So they can go back into their dark storage, and that helps preserve them for longer. And then the current Van Swearingen room, just due to the nature and the fragility of the terminal tower model that is currently in that room. That room is probably going to stay generally the same, but instead of just focusing on the Van Swearingen brothers, we want to focus on early Shaker Heights. So beyond the Van Swearingen brothers, William Van Aken played a very large role in the development of Shaker Heights as a city. And if you watched my previous Director's Desk talk, there were early merchants in Shaker Heights, such as Van Aken's half-sisters, the Hank sisters, Anna and Helen. My talk about them, they're just a fascinating pair of women. And so featuring maybe some early merchants in that gallery would be very cool. But this would still keep the model, still talk about the Van Swearingen brothers, but kind of move beyond that to also highlight other significant people in the early history. And one other significant change on the first floor would be our gift shop. If you visited the gift shop, especially anytime recently with the sun coming in, it is a beautiful room. It is my favorite room in the house. The tiling is beautiful. There's some iron work in there that is just gorgeous. And if you lose a lot of that in the current gift shop just because of all of the inventory that's up for sale. And the reality is that our gift shop these days does not make much money. Back in the day, it was very successful, but it is a very, very, very tiny percentage of our revenue. And so the amount of space it takes up for the amount that it brings in just is not ideal anymore. And so our goal is to really downsize our gift shop, still sell some things, especially some branded items, people that want Shaker Historical Society souvenirs. We definitely still want to provide that, but to turn this room into more of a community room. So we could have chairs, maybe a little reading area for guests to just sit for a little bit when they come during their visits. It could also be a very nice event space, for small parties. Remember when we had those pre-COVID days? And also using that room as a space to tell a little bit about the Myers family and the house itself, because we currently don't talk much about the Myers, don't talk much about the house, but we do get a lot of questions about it. And so it would be a great opportunity to just set up a small exhibit so people can learn a little bit more about the house itself, which, as is mentioned in our current exhibit, Shaker's Attic, is one of the greatest gifts we've ever received. So our second floor, we've kind of already talked about changing the sleeping porch, that's this room here, into a classroom and event space. The Shaker bedroom would stay the same. It's just really well done. And the Space Task Force in general has agreed there's really no need to change it. So that would most likely stay the same. But then the room that currently kind of deals with both the Shakers and early Shaker Heights, that kind of has a little bit of everything in it. We call it the knickknack room just because it has so much in it. We really want to start using that space to talk more about modern Shaker Heights. So kind of from 1950 to present is the history that has been left out in our other exhibits. And so we would really like to dedicate some space to modern Shaker and have room to grow as historic events happen, like COVID. As for our library, the library would stay the same, but the space all the way to the right on here is currently the office space for our education and outreach manager and our marketing and operations manager. And so we had very preliminary discussions about either moving them to the end of the hall with those two rooms that could become offices, or into the Butlers Pantry, which is also potentially a workspace, and having this space devoted to more library and archive space. Because the reality is that our archives continually grow. They will continue to grow, and we are just running out of room in our library. And so having all of this space for shelving and flat files would be really helpful, and would allow us to have more room for researchers who want to come do research. And then the last floor is the third floor, or the attic. It's currently being used for collection storage. It isn't ideal because it is not climate controlled. So much like the sleeping porch, We really have to figure out how to get AC and heating in there to avoid temperature fluctuations. But our goal is to make the third floor accession storage. It is, it's a big attic. There is room. We just need, number one, better enclosures in terms of shelving. Things could be stored better than the way that they are in order to save space. So we do need, as I said, better shelving, better enclosures, and just kind of figuring out what the best storage solutions for the different kinds of objects are. Because we have a little bit of everything. We have chairs, we have furniture, we have tools, giant saws. So everything gets stored a little differently. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is just highlighting 3 objects that we have come across during our spring cleaning sessions that I mentioned that I thought were kind of cool, and really show the value in what we're doing because of all the stuff we are uncovering. So the first thing that I wanted to share is this hand-drawn map that identifies businesses in the Chagrin-Lee corridor. And if the dates down here are correct, I believe the businesses listed are from 1939 and 1960. And if I remember correctly, the exhibit was either, I want to say it was around the 90s when this exhibit was being planned. I don't remember if the exhibit actually happened or not, but I just think that this map is, number one, very cool, but number two, incredibly helpful. It is a great resource. It was actually found in our basement in a pile of papers that had unfortunately become kind of moldy. So this has been scanned, and unfortunately we'll have to dispose of the original just due to the mold. But this is the kind of stuff that, it's old files. You don't always think like, oh, maybe we don't need to keep these. But for not only institutional archives, learning about our own history as a society, but something like this is actually really useful for the history of the city. So I was really happy that we came across this, and that this is something that we will be able to include in our archives for future research and exhibits. And the other thing, I think this is awesome. We came across this heavy metal sign. It's kind of hard to tell in here. It's very warped. I mean, you can see giant pieces missing, but from the side, it basically is entirely curved. It's not flat by any means. And we came across this again in our basement. Didn't really know. I mean, obviously it was from the police headquarters, but had no idea why it was like this. And somebody said that it was probably from the 1970 bombing of the Shaker Heights police station, which I had not known about. So then I started doing a bunch of research. It's very interesting. And that is our best guess as to where the sign is from. I've not come across any files or paperwork that has said when this was donated or who donated it. I'm guessing the city, but this would be a great object to include in like our modern Shaker Heights exhibit, because if this was damaged in 1970, this is a very significant event that happened in Shaker Heights. And, as I've said before, our current exhibits just don't talk about this period of history. So this was a very exciting object to come across. Did not know we had it until we started cleaning, and hopefully it will be on view within the next few years. And then lastly, I'm going to pull my little window up. This was a photograph that we found of the Myers Mansion, our home. So our current address is 16740 South Park. I'm guessing that this photo is probably from when the house was built, because it has the architect's name there and the address is different. So you can clearly tell, the reason I love this photo is that the space around the house looks so empty. If you visited the museum, or you're familiar with the neighborhood, we have neighbors on either side of us. We're surrounded by trees. Our backyard is almost half forest. It's like a mini forest back there. And so to be able to see so far in the background, and just this perfectly like manicured lawn and these very young trees, I think is fascinating. I love seeing this old view of the house. It's also, this side of the house is currently enclosed, and there is a second floor. So that was added on. This bottom part is what is currently our Van Swearingen exhibit, and the top floor is the offices next to the library that I mentioned. But I just think this is a great old photograph and would also be an excellent addition to a future exhibit about the Myers Mansion and the family. So that's just kind of a quick rundown of the Space Task Force. We've been working very hard and considering, it's springtime and with everyone doing some spring cleaning, I wanted to take a moment to just kind of share everything we've been working on. I know sometimes it feels like because our doors are closed that it looks like we're not doing anything, and we're actually extremely busy and really trying to plan ahead for a future that tells the whole Shaker Heights story. So if you have any questions about anything I talked about today, please get in touch with me at director@shakerhistory.org, or just our general email address, shakerhistory@shakerhistory.org. And if you also have, things that you want me to talk about at future director's desk talks, please let me know. This topic today was actually a recommendation from someone who requested that I talk a little bit more about it. And so I really do appreciate those recommendations. And the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the fact that we are open by appointment right now. We hope to fully reopen in May. There are, a few things we're still trying to get done before we fully reopen. But right now, you can make an appointment. So if you go to our website, at the very top, it says schedule a visit. There's also multiple links that say book your visit here. Any of them work. But if you click that, it takes you to our booking page, and it shows our availability based on staff availability and staff schedules. And you can book ahead through May, just because we don't know for sure when we're going to be reopened fully. Feel free to book ahead. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching this. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, and have a great Sunday.